Hey everybody, it is Friday, September 27th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Mosh.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. And sometimes we read 57-page federal indictments so you don't have to.
And of course, you are referring to the indictment against New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Yeah, actually, we moved a couple weeks ago, as I've mentioned. We happen to live a block and a half from Gracie Mansion, the home of the mayor, the traditional home of the mayor. So I couldn't help myself, Jill, Wednesday night when I saw the news. I'm like, Alex, I'm going to go to Gracie Mansion and see what I can see. So I hung out there for an hour Wednesday night. I live streamed on Instagram, caught up with some New York media friends of mine as they waited outside the mayor's house for inevitably was nothing Wednesday night. It turns out if I'd stayed there till early morning hours, Thursday morning, I would have seen the FBI show up to raid his home.
It's always fun, though, to be back out in the field every once in a while.
Yeah, that's where you start in journalism, typically, is you start out there in the field, especially when I started out like Fox and some of my early internships. I would just spend hours, they call it a stakeout, waiting to see who was going in a door, out a door for that 7-second shot, if you're lucky, maybe sometimes it's 2 seconds, of the principal walking in or out. We did that a lot in Capitol Hill, chasing after members of Congress and whomever, and you'd have to learn as a group to all walk backwards or run backwards while holding cameras and not trip over each other while you yell questions at them.
And it's prepping the one question you're going to have time to yell. It's
yes.
You've one chance. And that's the soundbite you're going to use. They're not going to answer it, but you want to at least get on the record having asked a question.
Yeah, you want to say they wouldn't answer questions as to what the charges were. They wouldn't answer questions of whether they're going to resign because that's the question you asked.
Whatever it is, You need to have it planned because all of a sudden they're going to appear and you need to know what you're going to say.
Are you scared of prison? Yeah. Some people ask more provocative questions than others.
Especially on Long Island, these cases are a little nutty.
Well, and in New York City on Wednesday night, just shouting questions because it's the New York media. They tend to not be very polite. They get straight to the point.
All right. With that, let's get to the headlines. New York City Mayor Eric Adams indicted, the charges, his reaction, and what comes next. Helene hits Florida, what we know about this massive storm. To the Middle East, the U.S. is pushing for a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Is it going to happen? Melania Trump sits down for a rare interview, what she says about the assassination attempt on her husband's life. Some new data on why an electric vehicle might be the way to go for your next car purchase, and a deep dive into how those batteries get made. In other business news, first came the $100 wide leg jeans, then the $700 shopping spree. In science news, Earth temporarily getting a second moon.
What they're calling a mini moon. Mini moon. It's cute.
We have baby moon. We have honeymoon. We did a mini moon before we went on our honeymoon. This is something totally different.
This is a large, very fast flying rock.
And why Hoda Kotb says she is leaving the Today Show even though she is at the top of her game. Plus, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating. Okay, a historic case against the mayor of the biggest city in the United States. A grand jury indicted New York City Mayor Eric Adams on 5 charges, including bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations, as well as what would be illegal contributions from companies. He is accused of running a long-term campaign to solicit donations from Turkey, even though he knew that foreign money in a New York City campaign was not legal. According to the indictment, the Turks provided Adams with luxury hotel suites and travel in exchange for influence in his administration. Here is the federal prosecutor laying out part of his case.
He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them. We allege that Adams accepted these benefits knowing that they were given to him because of his position. And in exchange for some of those improper benefits, he intervened in the New York City Fire Department's inspection process for a building owned and operated by the Turkish government, allowing it to open even though it had not passed the fire inspection.
All told, Adams could spend up to 45 years behind bars if found guilty and sentenced to the maximum. His reaction? He says he is innocent, will stay in office, and is imploring New Yorkers to hear his defense.
And I ask to wait and hear our side to this narrative. From here, my attorneys will take care of the case so I can take care of the city. My day-to-day will not change. I will continue to do the job for 8.3 million New Yorkers that I was elected to do.
I could say like rowdy reporters motion, also like a rowdy crowd around the mayor.
So Adams says he has work to do. He has no intention of stepping down. That's usually how this starts, and it ends one of two ways, Jill, with him eventually stepping down, being pressured by the party to step down, or somehow surviving. Remember Ralph Northam, the governor of Virginia, among those who've survived. Obviously we're comparing apples and oranges here, but we'll see how it goes. Adams is blaming politics here. He says that he's being targeted by the Biden administration because he was critical of the president. Reminder, they're both Democrats, but Adams was critical on immigration. So he's trying to say they're going after me because I was critical of them. The White House press secretary reacting that the Justice Department is independent here and they're handling this independently. And that's the bottom line. Prosecutors add that the scheme goes back a decade, way before President Biden was in office, way before Adams was even mayor, back when Adams was just a top elected official in Brooklyn, and he would obviously go to continue on to become mayor in 2021. Turkey clearly saw an opportunity here. They invested in him. And it appears to be a quid pro quo based on what is laid out here in the indictment. We will likely learn more today. Adams has received an order to appear before a judge for an arraignment at noon today before a federal magistrate judge. At the arraignment, Adams will formally be informed of his rights, will enter a plea, presumably based on what we're hearing here, Jill. He's going to say he's not guilty. He said he was not guilty before he even heard the criminal indictments, before he even knew what he was charged with. He's like, it's all fake. It's all lies. Wait and see. Now, what is laid out in this indictment? There's a lot. He got a lot of benefits. He's accused of getting a lot of benefits, including lots of luxury travel, free and discounted tickets on Turkish Airlines, free meals, hotel rooms from wealthy foreigners, and at least one Turkish government official. A reminder, it is illegal to receive foreign campaign contributions. Ultimately, it's one of the ways we try to protect our country and our politics from foreign intervention. What's notable, Jill, is apparently he would travel on Turkish Airlines even though it was inconvenient. In fact, he took a flight to France in 2017 from New York. There are many direct flights between New York and Paris. He flew through Istanbul on Turkish Airlines. So apparently here, this goes deep. There's lists of all the various benefits and gifts he got in the indictment. And what's notable is he tried to hide all these gifts. He tried to make it appear as if he paid for them, apparently to no avail. The value of the gifts here, $100,000. There's lots of details here, including text messages to Adams, between Adams and various advisors. Back in 2019, while he received one of these gifts from Turkey, apparently the airline manager would arrange travel for Adams, and Adams staffer texted Adams and said, to be on the safe side, please delete all the messages you send me related to this travel. Adams himself texts back, I always delete them.
Mosh, you can't make it up.
If you're trying to potentially do illegal activity, don't write it anywhere. Ever. I'm not here giving you criminal advice. I'm just stating the obvious. Now, as far as Eric Adams right now, obviously he's entitled to a defense, and that's what you're hearing from a number of Democratic officials. Remember, New York, pretty Democratic state, right? Chuck Schumer, Democrat. Hakeem Jeffries, the House leader, Democrat from New York. Kathy Hochul, the governor, Democrat. None of them are calling for him to resign right now. They all say a variation of, we're concerned about the charges, we're concerned about the accusations, and we will see how this goes. So no one, at least in the first 24 hours here, is calling for him to go. They're giving him some space. The governor is the one person who can remove him, since she's the governor of New York and he's a mayor of a city in New York, the largest city. She says she's reviewing the case, but stopped short of any push, at least publicly, to get him out of office. That said, you've had a number of people around him resign in recent weeks. The NYPD commissioner, the public schools commissioner, top advisors. There's a flood of resignations and vacancies around him. His top legal advisor, never a good sign when your legal advisor leaves. And what's notable is there is a line of succession here in New York if he is to go at some point. The public advocate, what's called the public advocate's office, takes over. It's a guy named Jamani Williams. notable. Jumaane Williams is a left-wing, very progressive Democrat. He fought for police reform, was part of the Occupy Wall Street movement. What would happen is he would take over, he would have to call for an election, and then we would have a free-for-all election within 90 days of that. So that's what would happen there. Among those who could compete, Jill, you thought he was gone.
He's back.
Andrew Cuomo, remember him from his briefings when he was the governor of New York? Then he faced a bunch of sexual harassment accusations and had to resign. Well, he wants back in. Apparently, he was already thinking about coming back now as the mayor of New York City as opposed to the governor. But now with all the trouble Adams has, and there's an election here, we have election in odd years here in New York City next year in 2025. Andrew Cuomo, he's got a lot of money left from campaign donations last go around. So he's looking at it. People around him are clearly talking to the media, putting it out there. So, you can imagine New York City, which a reminder, more than 8 million people live here. If we were to be our own state here in New York City, Jill, would be the 12th largest state in America. There's 38 states that have fewer people than New York City. Someone asked on Instagram, why would a foreign government go after just a mayor? He's just a mayor. I'm like, just a mayor? New York City, we're larger than most states. And we're the financial capital of the universe. There's a variety of reasons you would want to corrupt a New York City mayor. And fun fact around that, Jill, the city has been around for nearly 2 centuries. He is the first one to be indicted while in office. There have been a lot of investigations. They got close to potentially doing something to de Blasio, the last mayor. Bloomberg was investigated. Giuliani was investigated. David Dinkins was investigated. I could go on. But he made history here, Eric Adams, not the history you like to make, as the first sitting mayor to be indicted.
So you're telling me, Mosh, it's 2024 and something unprecedented has happened?
Unprecedented. And we're not even in October. Everyone keeps saying, what's the October surprise? We're still in September here.
And one fun fact from the indictment: during a voluntary interview with the FBI surrounding the criminal conduct in question, an Eric Adams staffer recused herself to the bathroom, and while she was in the stall, she wiped her phone of all of the messages that implicated her and Adams in the alleged crimes, because nothing says I'm innocent quite like wiping your phone history during your interview.
A reminder, just because you delete it on your phone doesn't mean the record goes away over at Verizon or AT&T or anywhere else. So if you think you're being smart, if you're outsmarting the authorities by going to the bathroom during the investigation, during the interview with federal law enforcement, don't create more problems for yourself by deleting the messages. And Jill, you called it a fun fact. Fun for us. There's a fun little find in the indictment. Probably not so fun for her and her attorneys.
By the way, I was chatting with some peeps at the bus stop on Thursday afternoon, and everyone wanted to talk about the Adams indictment. And a few people said, Andrew Cuomo, not so bad. We'll take him back. So I think,
Andrew Cuomo.
Not that we Long Islanders can vote for mayor, but you never know.
We take our advice from those of you who voted for George Santos last go around.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
New York politics,
Too
everybody.
Far. Ow.
New York politics, New York politics. Listen, I think that we're clearly grading on a scale here when it comes to New York politicians these days.
But listen, between George Santos, Elliot Spitzer, Andrew Cuomo,
David Patterson.
The list goes on. David Patterson. I mean, Anthony Weiner. What is up with New York politicians?
I will say this: as my hometown, Chicago. For a while there, we had several of our governors. It was like almost every governor for a while there going to jail. So, as an Illinoisan, welcome to the party.
All right, now to Hurricane Helene, which as of this recording Thursday night is a massive Category 4 hurricane. Areas across Florida's Big Bend region could see a storm surge of up to 20 feet. That is like a 2-story building. In case you're not familiar with storm surge, it's basically a wall of water that just drives into the shore. The National Weather Service says that it is unsurvivable. The storm making landfall late Thursday night. So Floridians waking up this morning from what is likely to have been a very tough night. Already 100,000 residents in Florida are without power, and that is before landfall. So again, just check with the Mo News Instagram account, because we're going to have the latest all day on the storm.
Yeah, so we'll wait for the final numbers here, the final analysis. But Helene, already one of the largest storms in the Gulf of Mexico in the last century. The wind field, the width of this storm, spans roughly the distance between Indianapolis and Washington, D.C., just to give you a sense of how wide this thing is. I don't know if you've seen the satellite pictures here. And the impact will not just be in Florida. We've been telling you, get ready Atlanta, get ready Tennessee, get ready Carolinas. More than 2 million people in Georgia, including the Atlanta metro area, are under a flash flood warning, heavy rainfall. Remember, the storm weakens over land, but given how strong it is coming in, you're going to have hurricane force winds hundreds of miles inland there into Georgia, Carolinas, Alabama, etc. There's a concern about places like Asheville, North Carolina, historic rainfall and flooding in Appalachian mountain destinations, flood watches through Nashville, all the way across the Mississippi River into Arkansas. So this is a massive storm. So if you live anywhere in the Southeast, mid-Atlantic, please be ready for this. Take in your lawn furniture. Be ready for potential flooding because the next couple of days could be pretty tough.
Time for the speed read. Let's start in the Middle East. This from NBC News. The U.S. and allies have called for an immediate 21-day ceasefire to allow for talks between Israel and Hezbollah. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that he was yet to respond to the proposal and told the country's military to keep, quote, fighting with full force. In a brief statement in New York as he arrived for the UN General Assembly, Netanyahu insisted that his government will not stop its fight against Hezbollah in Lebanon. He said, our policy is clear. We continue to hit Hezbollah with all of our might. He said they're not going to stop until they achieve their goal, which, first of all, is the safe return of the residents who live in northern Israel to their homes. He said that is the policy and no one will mistake it.
So defiant tones by the Israelis, no word from Hezbollah or Lebanon on any deal there. So while the world watches and is trying to impose this 3-week ceasefire to allow for time for long-range diplomatic discussions, Israel has an agenda here, and Hezbollah has no plans to stop anything. They haven't for 11 months. Claiming that they won't stop shooting at Israel while the war down with Hamas and Gaza continues. On Thursday, Israel launched a strike on Beirut, as well as a new wave of strikes on southern Lebanon, killing a number of senior Hezbollah officials and fighters. A reminder, the Hezbollah fighting force is upwards of 50,000, according to estimates, though they claim up to 100,000. Now, in Lebanon, a number of residents have evacuated, especially in Shia areas and in Hezbollah-strong areas or areas where residents know that Hezbollah is hiding weapons, etc. So a number of them heading up north. In the casualty totals right now, the Lebanese health authorities have said that several dozen women and children have been killed. When you look at the overall death toll right now, the Israeli troops are carrying out a military exercise to prepare for a potential ground invasion in Lebanon, saying that these airstrikes are preparing the ground for a ground invasion, and that unless Hezbollah moves itself away from the border, Israel may plan on sending ground forces across the border to move them back.
From the Washington Post, in her first interview in more than 2 years, former First Lady Melania Trump blamed Democrats and the media for fueling a toxic atmosphere that she blames for the attempts on her husband's life. It comes as the very reclusive former First Lady is promoting her upcoming memoir called Melania. In a recorded interview which aired on Fox and Friends Thursday, she blamed Democrats in part for the assassination attempts on her husband's life.
Is it really shocking that all this egregious violence goes against my husband? Especially that we hear the leaders from the opposition party and mainstream media branding him as a threat to democracy, calling him vile names. They only fueling a toxic atmosphere and giving power all of these people that they want to do harm to him.
Melania Trump really has not been seen in public since Donald Trump declared his third run for the presidency 22 months ago. Melania appeared for only the final night of the Republican National Convention, where she joined her fellow Trumps in the VIP box. But unlike most candidates' wives or husbands, did not make a speech with regard to her minimized role at the RNC, which occurred days after the July assassination attempt. Melania Trump said that it was her decision.
Yeah, for those who are following, I think she's been out there a handful of times, doesn't like the limelight. And in fact, if you talk to people who worked with her while she was first lady, never really came to the office, didn't do much. We talked about that in a podcast we did recently on first ladies. So it remains to be seen what her role would be if Trump is to win in November and he would return to office, whether she would even be at the White House or how often she would be at the White House and what she would do in that role. The former first lady, as far as the assassination attempts, the former first lady in that Fox interview that aired yesterday was asked further about the assassination attempts. She said that a very difficult part was telling their son Barron, he's the youngest of the Trump children, the only child that Melania had with the former president. She said it was very difficult to tell him what had happened, that his father had been shot. He was outside playing sports and he rushed in. As for what's in the book, she's being very circumspect right now in what is in Melania, whether she'll provide any details in there. She did say to Fox that she focuses on how Trump is really a family man who likes music and he likes to DJ at family events. That's what she told Fox yesterday.
What is he playing? I want to know.
Well, we know from his rallies because he's had various musicians who have protested his music. He likes some ABBA. He likes YMCA. He has, in the mix at Mar-a-Lago, they bring him out an iPad and then he picks the music that's played at various events. Elton John, he's a big fan of Elton John. Elton John, not a big fan of Trump. And so he's been among the artists where Trump tries to play Elton John at rallies. And then John protested. And so ultimately can't play that. Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, also among his favorites, Jill.
Eclectic music tastes.
As they used to say on some of those radio stations, the best of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and today. Right?
And today. From Axios, if you're looking for an electric vehicle for your next car, consider this. Some new data shows that thieves are not that interested in stealing electric vehicles. According to the latest data from the National Insurance Crime Bureau, more than 1 million vehicles were stolen in the U.S. in 2023. And it turns out that 4 of the 6 least stolen vehicles are EVs. That is according to an analysis of insurance claims. So overall, 49 of every 100,000 insured cars are stolen each year. By contrast, only 1 out of 100,000 insured Tesla Model 3s were stolen. The lowest theft claims came from versions of the Tesla Model 3, the Model Y, the Hyundai Tucson, and the Volvo XC90 and the GMC Acadia.
Yeah, so 50 times less likely to be stolen if you have an EV, if you're looking for a reason to go in that direction. They tend to have better security that befuddles the thieves, better GPS tracking. So it appears thieves right now are less likely to steal it also because typically EV owners also keep their car, they're more garage kept because they're charging overnight, which is another reason for the trend here. Now, if you're wondering which cars are the most stolen, well, the analysis showed that it's the Dodge Durango Hellcat. That is stolen 2,500 times out of 100,000. So that is whatever that is. That's many, many percentage higher, 2,500% higher than that Tesla Model 3. Also on the top most stolen list, the Dodge Charger, the Dodge Challenger, the GMC Sierra, pickup models, both the light duty and the heavy duty, as well as the Chevy Camaro. So those are the most stolen cars in America, according to the analysis. Jill, while we're focused on EVs, that was a key subject that came up in a new edition of the Mo News interview podcast. We're talking about EVs, we're talking about their batteries and what powers those batteries, the key element, the vital element of lithium these days. We've partnered here at Mo News with Energyx. They are a lithium production company looking to better educate the audience about the state of clean energy, EVs, lithium. The founder and CEO of Energyx, Teague Egan, was one of our recent guests on the Mo News interview podcast. Go check out that episode. I think it's the second to last podcast. Energyx, again, a lithium production company looking to speed up the process since demand for lithium right now has far surpassed production and supply at the moment. So right now, the way to get lithium in many cases is to pump up groundwater and have it sit in pools and let it literally evaporate under the sun for about 18 months before you can get the lithium out. Over there at Energyx, they've pulled together a new lithium production process that's taken from 18 months to 2 days, and it's much more efficient. So we get into that in the podcast. Here's a bit of my conversation with Teague. So you pump up all this water, goes into pools, and you're literally, it's in the middle of the desert, and you're literally waiting for the sun every single day to gradually dry up this water, and 18 months later, you can finally get the lithium out of there.
The most important part is that through that POM process, they only recover about 30% of the initial lithium that's pumped up because you lose lithium through this inexact process. Anyway, I looked at this and said, there has to be a better way to do this. Why can't we use 21st century technology that we use for separation of all these different things for lithium? And that is essentially what Energyx has invented. So we use different separation technologies in a refinery system.
So I thought it was some really interesting perspective. You can listen to the full thing again over on the Mo News interview podcast. And again, we should mention we've partnered with them. They are a sponsor at Mo News this week because they're offering a limited time opportunity to invest in the company. Anyone can invest. They have a share offering to all interested investors that is running through midweek next week through October 3rd. A disclaimer here that Energyx is offering securities through the use of an offering statement that has been qualified through the SEC under Tier 2 of Regulation A. A copy of that offering circular that forms a part of the offering statement can be obtained over at invest.energyx.com. If you want to learn more how to invest, go check that out via the link in the show notes.
From Bloomberg, big pants are driving big changes across the entire wardrobe. A shift in fashion toward wide leg jeans has driven the likes of Gap, J. Crew's Madewell, and even Lululemon Athletica to offer these styles, and it's really boosting sales. So these brands are now enjoying an extra benefit that comes with the popularity of this new silhouette. Consumers are also buying a host of other items to go with the pants. Gap said its average order size increases when shoppers buy baggy jeans compared to when they purchase skinny or other denim silhouettes. So while bigger tops work with skinny jeans, shoppers are now gravitating to smaller ones to balance out the wider bottoms. The phenomenon is driving bigger purchases at brands like Madewell, Gap, and Urban Outfitters Anthropologie. And its potential to significantly shake up spending in teens and young women is making companies and analysts carefully track this wide leg jean craze and the additional shopping that it inspires.
So these are different from the bell bottoms, right, Jill?
Yes, these are kind of just like baggy, wide leg jeans. Bell bottoms are kind of tight on the top and then go out at the bottom.
All right. Yes. I think my wife, Alex, has them. Alex, if you're listening to the podcast, I have noticed, I believe you have these wide leg jeans.
You better hope she has them after you're saying
she totally does. She totally does. What's interesting about this story is apparently there's a number of buyers that are having trouble styling with these jeans because, you know, there's a whole millennial set, Jill, as you're familiar with, that has been used to skinny leg jeans and styling around skinny legs, such a wardrobe staple. So I read here in this article that styling around the wide-legged jeans is a challenge for some women these days. All
I can tell you as a millennial Gen X cusper is like, I can't figure these jeans out. I'm not wearing them. I can't. I've tried. It just doesn't work. I feel weird in them. And so I just
skinny
can't.
For life.
Yeah.
Side part for life.
Side part for life, skinny for life.
Skinny for life. So apparently Madewell understands this challenge that you're having and what other women are having. So they've shifted their strategy to offer more what they call style education to help you navigate looks like this. Stylists say that the bottom line here is if you're wearing something big on the bottom, you need some sort of shape on top. Take that for what it's worth.
Nope. Still not wearing them.
All right.
Maybe I need to go and get some help. Some style help, which I definitely need. From Time, starting next week, the moon, Earth's closest celestial body, will be joined by a new neighbor, what is being called a second moon. From this Sunday until November 25th, astronomers calculate that what they believe will be an asteroid called 2024 PT5 will join Earth's orbit. Scientists are calling it a mini moon while it's looping around Earth. Eventually, it will break free of the planet's gravitational orbit. Sadly, it's only 32 feet wide, so this mini moon is going to be really hard to see from Earth. But nonetheless, its presence will be there for about 2 months. Researchers say Earth can regularly capture asteroids from the near-Earth object, or NEO population, and pull them into orbit, making them mini moons.
So according to NASA, an NEO, a near-Earth object, is any body, asteroid or otherwise, that is nudged by the gravitational attraction of nearby planets that pushes them to Earth's neighborhood. So sometimes they, go towards Earth, right? And we see them kind of shoot across the sky. Sometimes they just zip on by. And this one is a unique place because it'll be basically revolving around us for a few weeks there. I guess it wants to see what the results of the election are, Jill, because it's going to hang out for a few weeks in November. Ideally, we'll have a result before 2024 PT5 zips back out into space November 25th. God help us if we don't have a result by November 25th. Mini moons can come in multiple types, by the way. It could be like this. And some believe that this might have been a part of the actual moon that got knocked off, could have been millions of years ago. And then somehow, once in a while, as it makes its way through the solar system, zips on by and hangs out for a few weeks. So welcome, Mini Moon.
And finally, from USA Today, Hoda Kotb is saying goodbye to the Today Show. Kotb wiped away tears as she shared the news live on the NBC show on Thursday morning, describing this decision as the hardest thing in the world. She said also her children deserve a bigger piece of my time pie. She has worked with NBC News since 1998. She was originally a Dateline correspondent. She's been the co-anchor of the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie since 2018. She actually assumed the co-anchor role opposite Guthrie after Matt Lauer was fired back in 2017. Kotb was installed as this emergency substitute, but viewers responded so positively to her and her rapport with Savannah Guthrie, who is the other co-anchor. She's also hosted the Today Show's 4th hour since 2007. Here is a bit of her goodbye message where she said turning 60 last month was a monumental moment for her that really made her think about the decade ahead.
And I realized that it was time for me to turn the page at 60 and to try something new. And I think I realized it. This was so crazy, but remember our 60th birthday that we had outside? It was so, I can see it. And I remembered standing outside looking at this beautiful bunch of people with all these gorgeous signs. And I thought, like, this is what the top of the wave feels like for me. And I thought it can't get better. And I decided that this is the right time for me to kind of move on.
Mosh, incredible to think that she decided to get out while she was still on top, which, as we have seen from politicians and just in general, that is not an easy thing to do. And as I mentioned, she also said that her children just deserve more of her time.
Yeah, she's still like 15 years too young at 60 to run for president, based on what we see the politicians in Washington. But we know people in the business who've stayed around far too long, Jill, who had to sort of be pushed off of television. It's a very sad thing. So Hoda here, 2 very young children she adopted in her 50s. They factored into the transition here. She told everyone yesterday, I had my kiddos late in life, and they deserve a bigger piece of my time pie right now. So her exit creates a huge vacancy there, both for the 7 to 9, as well as the 10 o'clock hour with Jenna Bush Hager. So we'll see who naturally fits in there. The Today franchise, even as people have left morning television, are still a big deal when it comes to revenue for NBC. Those 4 hours of Today, they repeat one at night. Basically, we're at the point now where about 20% to 25% of NBC is the Today Show at this juncture. So we will watch to see who fills her seat.
All right, Mosh, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for We Are Watching, Reading, and Eating. What are you watching?
So there is a new documentary out on Netflix. Friends there have been telling me about it, called Will and Harper. It stars Will Ferrell and Harper Steele. They're friends going back to SNL back in the 90s. Harper Steele comes out as a trans woman and went through a transition, and then travels with Will Ferrell in this documentary. And so it's a fascinating portrait there. I'm told pretty powerful and emotional. So I'm looking forward to watching that on Netflix, Will and Harper. Jill, what do you got? Tell
Me Lies on Hulu. We're in the middle of the 2nd season. Let's just say it's extremely popular amongst most of the moms I know in the suburbs. It's a drama about college kids. And then there's kind of like flashbacks when they're in their 20s to when they were in college. Very steamy, a lot of drama, just kind of like a light, kind of fun watch.
Jill, we watched season 1 2 years ago. I didn't even realize season 2 had come out. So I'll have to let Alex know.
I didn't either. And then I happened to see it on Hulu and I'm like, what? Season 2? Finally. So
all right,
I've been enjoying it. All right, Mosh, what are you reading?
So the rollout finally happened this week for our friend Sharon McMahon's book, Small and Mighty. Alex and I Went to a book rollout in New York Wednesday night with Ken Burns. They had an incredible conversation, Small and Mighty, a story of a dozen unsung American heroes you've probably never heard about, but had a huge impact on our history. And so definitely check that out. We also did an interview with Sharon on the Mo News Interview Podcast. Where else? So go listen to that for a preview of the book. Jill, what are you reading?
Mosh, in the Free Press, an article called Battleground Michigan, a tale of two communities divided by war. So you've got West Bloomfield, which is primarily Jewish, and Dearborn, which is primarily Arab, separated by less than 25 miles. But the Jewish and Arab residents' views on who should win the presidential race feel worlds apart. I've spent a lot of time in Michigan, both as a college student and also as a news reporter. And it is really fascinating to see these two communities. There's been a lot of stories about how they have interfaith groups that always meet to talk, but there is also some tension as well. So I'm looking forward to this read.
All right, finally, our favorite part. What are we eating? Jill, you go first.
Gumbo. Okay, I don't know if I'm actually going to have time to make it, but I do want to give another shout out to our interview with the U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Another interview available on the Mo News Interview Podcast this week.
Yes, and thank you to everyone who listened to it and wrote me some really nice notes about it. I appreciate it. She was great, and every ambassador or diplomat has their style, and she is known as the gumbo diplomat, or she practices gumbo diplomacy. She says she gets people around, they help make the recipe, and one thing leads to another, and you start talking and really breaking down barriers and getting to know each other. So that's kind of her style. And we did link to her recipe in one of the newsletters this week, and we'll link to it again in the newsletter today.
I actually had a bowl of gumbo when I was in New Orleans earlier this week, Jill.
Well, Mosh, the ambassador is from Louisiana.
There you go.
All right, Mosh, what are you eating?
We just tried the apple babka from Bread's Bakery ahead of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. That's next week. Apple, a key component of various Jewish traditions around the holiday. They have an apple babka at Bread's, and 2 thumbs up.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store. And have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, everyone. And stay safe down in the Southeast.